Hi guys, Mark Braxton back here to talk to you with my review of Dr. Diva's Season 4 finale, Part 3. And I've set the stopwatch for this one, as I did with Part 1, to make sure that I don't go over the 10-minute mark. Fortunately, I didn't with Part 2, and we're getting to the end anyway, so there'll be either 3 or 4 parts, depending on how we go. Alright, so where we left off before the commercial break, we were discussing the social security scene with Jane and how she wouldn't take no for an answer, but the guy at the desk, or the customer service representative, really didn't seem to care. Jane then went back down the line and was stopped by an elderly gentleman who asked her to go and see Fred, and that's very exciting. We'll get to that in just a minute. Let's go back onto the mortal world and discuss the biggest scene. If you saw the warning and you saw me talk about the big scene, this is the big scene. I loved this. So, Dead Jane still hasn't walked down the aisle, and other than Terry turning to Stacey and sort of out of the corner of her mouth saying, "Do something, or I will," and Stacey goes saying, "We're not going to have some professional entertainment by Parker, who's going to say a few words." That was great, but why did no one rush off to see where Jane was? Especially Stacey. That really surprised me. But anyway, finally Grayson has the good graces to go and speak to go and find Jane and find out what's going on. So he finds Jane and finds out about the trail being stuck under the dresser foot and releases that, and they get to talking during that time. Earlier in the episode, I digress for a minute so that this makes sense. Deb, Jane, and Grayson had a really bitchy argument about Deb Jane telling him he needs to get over Deb, and it was really, really bad. Considering how much that Deb Jane loved Grayson, I was really surprised that she even had that sort of emotion to project onto Grayson. It was shocking. But either way, the good news was, yep, that's better. The good news, sorry, it was just turning the TV off there. The light was annoying me. The good news was that they resolved that. Obviously, at a wedding, everyone seems to resolve things, particularly if it's TV. And Grayson was saying to Deb Jane how not only had he got over Deb, but he'd gotten over Deb because he'd met someone. And Jane got really excited and she said, "Oh, who?" And Grayson turned around, and to me this was obvious, but I don't think it was to a lot of other people. Grayson turned around and said, "Look, it's okay, I'll tell you later." And I knew right away who it was. But anyway, Jane pushed again and said, "No, who is it?" And he goes, "No, look, this is the wrong time and the wrong place." And Jane kept pushing and saying, "No, tell me. And then the biggest thing happened. I really didn't think Grayson would say it, but he did. He said that he was able to get over Jane because he met... So he was able to get over Deb because he met Jane. And how beautiful was that? Seriously, I mean, if you weren't in tears or close to tears, then I bet you didn't cry when Danny's mum died either. I mean, that was the most beautiful moment, I think, for all of us. We all wanted to see Deb get what she wanted for the first time since being Jane. And the only thing she had ever truly wanted in her heart, if you've watched the show as much as I have, as I said repeatedly, I am obsessed with DDD. The one thing Jane truly wanted that she never had was Grayson. So to see that speech and to hear him say that he was able to move on from Deb because of Jane was just so beautiful. And then they shared a lovely kiss, perfect amount of timing. It wasn't too long, it wasn't too short. And again, my housemate and I were just like, "Oh, it's just, so exciting." And so beautiful and lovely and all of that. And the next thing we know, the camera pans out behind Jane and sees Owen's there. And it was obviously very, very, very young. I will now cut from there to the final heaven thing. And so Jane, who was informed by the elderly gentleman, if you'll recall, to go and see Fred, walks into this room where, lo and behold, Ben Feldman returns as Fred, and it was so amazing. And I must say, First and foremost, was thrilled to see Ben Sullivan back. Loved him as Fred. It took me, honestly, until just this last episode, the finale, to love Luke. I resented Luke so much, very similar to the fact that I resented Owen because of Grayson, and him stepping in the way of Grayson. I resented Fred a lot because of how much I loved Luke. And even though Luke broke a rule and had to go back up to heaven, he was able to come back down, and then he left again. So I got very upset when Fred left, and still to this day couldn't find a reason as to why, whether he was fired, whether he left. I wasn't able to find anything. The one thing that I was able to find was that the creator and director said Ben Feldman will be coming back into the show, and it was written this way: Ben Feldman will be coming back into the show, but he will not be coming back as Fred. So I was very shocked, and I guess you could say pleasantly surprised, to see Ben Feldman, playing the guardian angel Fred. So let's race through that discussion. So Jane's talking to Fred, and she's like, and the interesting thing, the funny thing actually, now that I recall, is Fred was saying to Jane, he thought Jane was Deb Jane. So he was making jokes about, thinking along the lines that it was Deb Jane rather than Jane. And Jane turned around and she goes, "No, I'm Jane. I was the one that got shot." And so then Fred all of a sudden realizes, "Oh, this is actually Jane." Excuse my throat, sorry. So he goes, "Oh, this is actually Jane," and they have a discussion, and Jane wants to know, and she's in a, well, what I would call pum mood at that point. She's like, "Yep, no, I'm not taking any crap from anyone. I'm going to find out what's going on. How the heck do I get back to work?" So they end up having that discussion, and Fred, I think either Fred slips up or Jane finds out, either way, that something's pressed on the keyboard, and Jane's trying to work out what it is, and eventually, owing to her smarts, naturally, she realizes that it's the return button. And she, being the smart girl that she is, says something along the lines, don't quote me, but it's similar to this, something along the lines of, "Oh, don't you think your supervisor would be very upset with me, with you if something happened?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, over there," and points behind him. Fred turns around. Now, I'm sorry, but are you kidding me? If I was the head angel like Fred, and I had someone come to me saying, "No matter what, I'm going to go back down to Earth. Now that I know what to do, I'm going to press the button and there's someone behind you." I mean, seriously, I will not turn around. I would be like, "Yeah, good one. I don't think so." Or, "Why don't you come around this way, and while I turn around, you can be over here on my side so I know where you are the whole time." Or, even better, grab the keyboard and turn around with the keyboard. But Fred, being the lovely, we love Fred, we love Fred, love him. Lovely, naive guy that he is, just turned around, took her word for it, and next thing you know, Jane has pressed the enter button, and the fuzzy orbs came up just like they did with Deb Jane, and it is presumed that she's gone down to the mortal world. So, we are about to move on to the final part of my review of Dr. Diva's Season 4 finale, and what we're going to find out is what's happening with Owen, now that he's seen Grayson and Deb Jane kiss, and what's happening with Jane. She's pressed the button. What's going to happen? All will be revealed right after these short messages.